lot of people have been talking noise about the Big Red. When Raiola slings it, you get on your feet, and I want 4 quarters of smash mouth football!
Welcome, Husker fans. Thank you for tuning in to Big Red Radio, the Husker Talk Show. I am your host, Caleb Jenneret. Next to me, as always, is my host, Zach Jenneret. Sorry, my co-host. It's been a while. It's been probably a few months at this point. A lot of things have happened. Zach is a head wrestling coach. I am a father of twins now. So we've been pretty busy. But things have slowed down a little bit. So we had some time and decided to do our first off-season episode. I think it's our first off-season episode. So we're ranking our top 5 off-season moves today. That's transfer portal, coaching hires, high school recruiting all combined. Really just wanted to get on here and kind of refresh, let everybody know our thoughts, and then, going forward, we can hopefully get on here more regularly and talk about moves as they happen. But make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, hit the bell, follow us on other socials, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. That's where you get all your updates, all your extra content. But yeah, Zach, you got anything else before we get started?
No, I don't think so.
Not a lot of news right now. It's kind of slowed down since all the big stuff. There is a Notre Dame offensive lineman that's visiting, as you're watching this, visiting today as we speak. He's a center. He was a starting center for Notre Dame. But apparently Notre Dame didn't promise him a starting spot, so he entered the portal to see what he could get. So I'm interested to see how that happens. But all right, getting into it, we're doing our top 5. We're going to go 5 to 1. We have some honorable mentions that we'll get to later, right before we read off our number 1. But we're going to start at 5. I'll start. My 5 is kind of accumulation of something that happened. So I have flipping Isaiah Mosey, Cortez Mills, and Dawson Merritt. The big flips in high school recruiting is my number 5 move, because these are all legit, recruits. All 4 stars, high 4 stars at that. Dawson Merritt being the highest one. Matt Rule thinks he's quality enough to be a 5-star. And just look at who we flipped him from. Isaiah Mosey flipped him from Oregon. Dawson Merritt flipped him from Alabama. Cortez Mills flipped him from Oklahoma. 2 playoff contending teams with Alabama and Oregon, and then Oklahoma, who's always near the top of their recruiting rankings. So the fact that Matt Rule can flip these guys without any legit on-field success just shows you what he can do when he gets on-field success, which I think he'll do starting this year.
Yeah, my 5 is keeping guys around that had talks of leaving. You have quite a few guys that entered the draft or declared for the draft coming back. Javen Wright was one of them. You also had Ramir Johnson.
Ramir Johnson's gone.
Emmett Johnson.
Yeah.
Talk about leaving. Never actually, commit to it, but definitely talked about leaving. Comes back. I know there's a couple more.
Yeah, Deshaun Singleton's coming back.
Deshaun Singleton coming back. So that's obviously like a culture thing. These guys want to be around. And so even when everything seems like they should leave, they just can't, bring their hearts to it.
Yeah, and they're all huge get backs, I guess. Because Deshaun Singleton, had a chance to get drafted. Javen Wright, I don't think had a chance to get drafted, but he's a huge piece. And he was playing a lot towards the end of the year for Nebraska after, having that weird medical problem in the beginning of the year. So he's going to be big to have back at that linebacker position. My number 4 is getting Williams or Nweri out of the portal. The only reason he's not higher, because I think he has the potential to be the best player on the team. He has like legit top 10 draft pick potential. He was the number 1 edge in the class last year, just an absolute freak. But the only reason he's not higher is because I don't doubt that our defense is going to be fine. Like I never have any questions about our defense, especially under Matt Rule. especially under John Butler. I think our defense is going to be fine. I think he's going to have an impact, but I don't think it's going to be, that big flip from last year. Like I think the offense is going to be in, like I'll talk about later. So Williams Nwaneri, although he has the potential to be the best player on the team, one of the best players in the Big Ten, one of the best players in the country, if you're talking about just potential, he comes in at number 4.
Yeah, my number 4 is John Butler. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I dislike Tony White and I dislike, all the guys that went and left for Florida State, because I'd be entirely wrong. Do I think Tony White was a elite D coordinator that can go win championships? I mean, no, probably not. But did he do a really good job and keep us in a lot of games when we had a atrocious offense that we probably shouldn't have been in, and won some games that we definitely should have lost had we not had that defense? Absolutely. Absolutely wouldn't be in the spot recruiting-wise, success-wise, winning the bowl game without the things Tony White did. But I do think towards the end, it started to get worse and not better, right? The glaring problems never changed. It was a good defense, but the problems just were so consistent. Mm-hmm. And I think hiring a guy inside that already knows the culture, the guys already know him, he's obviously had success in the past, is huge, because it's much better than bringing in, someone from the outside that could potentially be bad for your program.
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk about him a little bit later, actually. My number 3 is getting Dane Key out of the portal. Dane Key, proven receiver, had success against top-level SEC opponents. He's had bad QB play for at least 2 years now, depending on what you think of Will Levis. Those 2 years he had Dane Key with him. He's Kentucky's all-time leading receiver. He has first-round talent. I don't know if he's going to get there. He's a potential first-round pick. He had draft stock going into this offseason. People thought he was a shoo-in, to leave for the draft, and then he enters his name in the portal. Obviously, comes to Nebraska. The only reason he's not higher is because he only has 1 year left of eligibility. He's going to be Nebraska's. Thinking back, I can't think of a, on paper, better receiver than Dane Key that Nebraska's had in a long time. Definitely in the Matt Rule era. Definitely in the Scott Frost. Yet, Trey Palmer, but even Dane Key's coming in way more proven than Trey Palmer was.
Sure, but if you want,
Trey Palmer was a kick returner at LSU. Dane Key's the all-time leading receiver for an SEC program. Sure, talent-wise, but even then, Trey Palmer got drafted in the 6th round. So it's Dane Key could get drafted in day 1. I don't know if he will, but we'll see. Day 1, day 2 for sure. Trey Palmer was a day 3 guy. So I love Trey Palmer. Trey Palmer was a beast. I think Dane Key is coming in more proven, a better track record. And I think he's Nebraska's best receiver this year and in the entire Matt Rule. I'm debating on Wandale. Wandale is the one that's hanging me up because he was a stud, but he actually left for Kentucky. So
I don't think he was as good at Nebraska.
Right.
You know what I mean? He kind of flourished at Kentucky. That's kind of where his best days were.
Yeah. No, Trey Palmer is definitely the closest.
Yeah, for sure. I would argue Trey Palmer. I think skill-wise, Trey Palmer was good enough. I just don't think we had the scheme, offensive line. I don't think we had all the pieces to make Trey Palmer who Trey Palmer could have been.
I think you're underrating Dane Key a little bit. He's Kentucky.
No,
he's
for
SEC
sure.
Program's all-time leading receiver.
No, I understand. But I think if you put Trey Palmer on, I don't know, because you couldn't put him on a really, really good team because then he wouldn't play.
Sure.
But I think raw skill.
Georgia was trying to get Dane Key.
Right. No, for sure. Well, my number 3 is pretty similar. It's just receivers in general. Obviously, Dane Key headlining that, but not to forget, I'm probably going to mess up the name. I think it's Isaiah Hunter, and then also Hardly Gilmore coming out of Kentucky as well, which kind of ties in for me, I believe. Let me check. Yeah, ties in for me, the receivers coach that we got from Kentucky, because obviously without him, we never get Dane Key, Hardly Gilmore,
Right.
and Isaiah Hunter. But then also, keeping Ja'Cory Barney in there as well. Obviously losing Jalen Lloyd is a tough one. Malachi Coleman was, I don't know, just such an odd one because everyone thought that was the potential to be one of the best ever at Nebraska, and then just never ever panned out. So, I mean, I definitely think the receiving room has gotten better. Better.
No, 100%, 100% gotten better. And my number 2 is getting Isaiah Hunter out of the portal. And like I mentioned, the only reason Dane Key's at number 3 and Isaiah Hunter is at number 2, I think Dane Key's better than Isaiah Hunter right now, but Isaiah Hunter has 3 years of eligibility left. And he was Cal's leading receiver last year as a redshirt freshman. He's got the prototypical size. He's got the prototypical athleticism. He's got the speed. He's going to be, I think he's going to come in and automatically be Nebraska's biggest receiver. And I shouldn't say most athletic because Ja'Cory Barney's a freak. He's just not as big as Isaiah Hunter, but the potential's out of this world. And Isaiah Hunter, after this year, even this year, who knows what's going to happen this year, could be Nebraska's number 1 receiver for a long time. So Isaiah Hunter is my number 2 portal get.
Yeah, my number 2 is the defensive transfers. I know you said Williams Nwaneri, is that how you say it?
Sure.
Is not super high on your list, but I think he is, not because of how good he can be. Obviously, that's great, right? I do think he can definitely be the best player, but it's the fact that after Tony White left, it was a glaring hole. Not necessarily overall, but like as far as young players go. It was a glaring hole as far as young players go. Losing James Williams was terrible. Losing Jamari Butler, losing Princewell, losing Stephon Thompson. You lose a lot of, really good defensive guys there. And so to be able to bring in a few high-level, younger defensive guys kind of replaces all those holes. And honestly, the guys we bring in are either at the level or much higher above the level than the guys that we left out. Obviously, nothing against those guys because what they did for us was great, but kind of on to the next mindset where the guys we're bringing in, I think, are definitely better.
Yeah, no, definitely. So before we get to our number 1, we can do some honorable mentions. Deshaun McCullough from Oklahoma and Indiana, I guess before that. He's a freak. He's going to have a huge role in the defense. Hardly Gilmore, Zach mentioned him. He's super young, too. I think he's got like 4 years of eligibility left. He's only like 18 years old. Hiring John Butler. A lot of people are talking, I don't want to say talking trash on it, but they're down on the hire just because it's boring. I don't even think it's boring. I think he's a really good defensive coach. I think he's really smart the way everybody talks about him. I'm not worried about that at all. Hiring the rest of the defensive staff. Terry Braden, who's coaching for another Super Bowl in a couple of weeks. That's going to be a huge get. And then firing Ed Foley, I also put on here. You had to do it. You can't say it's a top 5 move because it's like such an obvious move that you had to make. And he did do some good things in recruiting, but that obviously had to happen. Andrew Marshall, the corner from Idaho, I think he's going to be a starter for Nebraska. And then I think I had one more. Oh, yeah, the linebacker from Georgia Southern. He's an all-conference level linebacker, all Sun Belt. So he's going to be legit. So he just barely missed my top 5.
Yeah, I just have 2. First one is Elijah Pritchett out of Alabama. Only reason he didn't really crack the top 5 is because I've heard from some sources that I do deem to be trustworthy. There's some off-the-field stuff that maybe held him back a little bit in Alabama. Tight end a few years ago from Georgia. Oh, what was his name? Off the field stuff through the roof. You know what I'm talking about?
Gilbert. Yeah, Eric Gilbert.
Yeah, Eric Gilbert. Yeah. There's kind of some bad taste in my mouth with him, which is really the reason that, I don't love that stuff coming from these guys. And then also Marco Stavila. Yeah. You lose depth in the QB room with Heinrich obviously transferring positions, and then also Kalen, transferring out. You lose essentially all your depth. Obviously, we return I forget his name, but you return him. But at the end of the day, he's obviously a great quarterback. He was Player of the Year in NAIA, but the jump from NAIA to Power 5 football at the highest of levels is massive. And so you bringing a guy that has a lot of eligibility and is proven just brings that depth back up there.
Yeah. So my number one, and I assume it's your number one also, just the fact that we haven't even talked about it yet, hiring Dana Holgorsen as the OC is my far and away number one. He's one of the best offensive coaches in the country, and you saw what he could do with less than half a season. I mean, he turned around the offense very quickly. You saw it in the Wisconsin game. That offense was firing on all cylinders against a defense that held Oregon to 16 points the week prior. Nebraska put up 40+ on them. Obviously Iowa didn't go the way we wanted, but there was open guys that just didn't catch the ball in that game. So he had us in that position to win. So just imagine what he can do with a full offseason. And they're giving him complete control of the offense, which I think is a huge factor. He's going to be the head coach of the offense pretty much, so he's going to have control. He brought in Da'Keel Shorts, like you mentioned. Without him, Da'Keel Shorts doesn't come in. Without Da'Keel Shorts, Dane Key doesn't come in. Isaiah Hunter doesn't come in. Hardly Gilmore doesn't come in. All these guys are all tied back to Dana Holgorsen. He knows what he wants. He knows what works on offense. He had his troubles as a head coach, but his offenses were always top 10 in the country. So he is by far and away the most important move of the offseason.
Yeah, that's also my number one. And reason it's number one for me is more of like how big and drastic the swing was. Because you look at the DC hire, John Butler. John Butler's a really, really good defensive coordinator. The reason he's at 4 and not say like 2 or 3 is because there wasn't as big of a swing. We didn't have a terrible defense these last years under Tony White. We had a terrible, terrible offense. I mean, it was hard to watch. It was consistently bad. We even brought in really good guys. Rail, Isaiah Nair, Jalen Lloyd, Corey Barney, Dante Dowdle. And we had, talent-wise, probably a top 4 running back room in the Big Ten and, couldn't run the ball. And so it was a glaring issue that we were placed with such a big get and such a big upside to it that, it's a huge swing, which obviously is why it's my number one.
Yeah. No, it's the fact that it shows Matt Rule's willing to do anything he can to win. He's not just going to, promote from within. He's not going to keep Satterfield longer than he has to. A lot of people were saying he should have fired him after last year. I don't want to get into this rabbit hole. You couldn't fire Satterfield after this year, but as soon as it was apparent that it wasn't going to work, Matt Rule fired him this year and hired, one of the best offensive coordinators in the country. So I'm super excited to see what can happen with him and the rest of our gets as well. But yeah, that's going to be it. Just a quick video for you guys in the off season, since we've been gone for so long, but we'll get back to it in the next coming weeks. I can't promise every week just because, we're super busy and everything, and we're not going to make a video if there's no news. But we'll figure something out. Zach, you got anything else?
Nope.
All right. Make sure you follow us on socials, like, subscribe so you never miss an episode. But without further ado, go Big Red.
If we die, we die! If we die, we die!